Hey guys, it's your old pal SimplySuperDave coming at you with another episode of Staying Super with SimplySuperDave. I am in thoughtful mood, very thoughtful mood, but we're going to try to keep it as entertaining as possible because like I said, most of the times to find the light in the world, we got to go through some pretty dark things to get there. And tonight's topic is about parenting. And parenting is going to lead into a darker topic because let's face it, folks, back in the day, your world was limited to what you can physically get yourself into, okay? The furthest you can do it outside of reality, but you had to deal with it in reality, was phone calls, okay? You could call somebody on the other side of the country and talk some shit, but, that was about the best you could do. As long distance, influences was by telephone. Then the internet came along, and now parenting has become so hard because now when your child steps outside the door, he doesn't have to do it physically, and I say they don't have to do it physically because that door is open right there in their hand, and they can learn so much that you try to protect them from and finding out. I really believe that, what's the word for it? I do believe the internet needs to have a regulation where, because let's face it, they can control it, right? They can narrate what you see. There's algorithms, blah, blah, blah. There should be a general setting. This, once the internet is discovered, the wild, wild west days are over. Everything has become corporate. The influence of information coming out is wonderful adults, because you get uncensored. It's up to you to make up your mind, blah, blah, blah. But for a certain age to a certain age, because I believe that children need to be, as when they're sponges, to be able to work these things, because the future is progressing on data. Data is controlled by these little machines in our hand. And eventually, we won't even have a machine in our hand. We'll be just doing it on a hologram, like some, anyway, that's all futuristic talk and shit. But the fact is, look where we are 20 years later. Look how we live as a society. Look how we react to one another and the ways that we can do it through so many virtual platforms, social media platforms. We're all marketing materials, putting ourselves out there, even trying to earn a buck off of it. It's amazing. I mean, look what I'm doing right now. I'm a perfect example of that. And I'm almost 50 years old. But I was, I knew from the very first days, and I've had my same email account for 20 plus years, when AOL, and if you don't know what AOL is, America Online, it was the first platform to bring people together in things called chat rooms, okay? Chat rooms were amazing because ASL, that's age, sex, location. That was the branding name on the internet. Even then we were trying to figure out who we were, where we were at, and just we realized that the whole world was connected, and we explored that, and everything was done in simpler times. And anyway, like I said, it was the Wild Wild West. It was like introducing everybody. Hello, I'm so-and-so. I had so many different screen names on AOL, but Simply Artistic was my original screen name. That developed into Simply Super Dave. Super Dave was my real life nickname at the video store or pretty much anywhere I worked. And so it's just an instant thing. It's synonymous. So as a Dave, you will hear that in your life. I don't care who you are. Someone will call you Super Dave. And so simply just describes how much, and it's an oxymoron if you really know me in real life. As simple as I like to try to keep things, it is very complicated. Anyway, beyond that, I to the point where I believe that we're more civilized in the internet age. So let's be smart about our kids out there, right? Let's be smart to know that they need to learn this technology because we want them to, be ahead of the game. We realize where this is going. So But we don't want them to have the full access to the bullshit that we deal with as adults. And as we are sorting out truth over fact and fiction, and what are we using this internet for? What categories can you put things into? I mean, if it's entertainment, then nothing should be serious, right? But I mean, we're figuring all that out. But as far as a kid's point of view, I think there should be a regulation where you have to be a certain age to access any website. And it's not by the website. Let's not even burden that. There should just be a gateway, you know. I also believe in the future of voting being done via the internet. I know that people say, well, that's open to hacking or whatever. Well, isn't that already happening? So why don't we just go ahead and verify, like doing our taxes? And I mean, if you can do your taxes online, if that's so goddamn secretive, and forgive me, I did not mean to do that, but I catch myself. I don't let it slip by. I own it. But I mean, if we're willing to give up that kind of privacy to do it that way on the internet, then what the hell if voting is so compromised? Watching people put bundles into voting machines and stuff like that, just, the mail-off drops and all. Just, it's stupid. It's stupid. It's always been corrupted. Even back in the gangs of New York days, in early New York when they were first established, they would just grab people off the street and then turn them around and give them a different name. I mean, it was mad. It was just mayhem. And then sometimes whoever got elected got killed so the other guy could win. I mean, it was just that brutal Wild West. But we have civilized ourselves as a nation now, Now we fight about things that are just narrated to us. This is the topic of the day. Push this, push this. They'll argue about it. And that's what we all talk around the water cooler, even though there's not a water cooler anymore. Life is so different. But anyway, I think there should be a regulation where your kid, if you're not a certain age, that you're not regulated or you don't have access to these websites, including things like Facebook. I don't think a child should be on Facebook. That's just my opinion. I know they want to narrate, but if you want it, you need to have a whole subcategory where even adults can't access the content. And I know that sounds weird, but no adult, or they can access it, but they can't interact with it. So you can be supervising what your kids are looking at, but even you can't interact with it. No adult dipping into the kiddie pool. And those websites would be authorized in that category would be educational. Purely educational. All right? With some fun, Nickelodeon or whatever, but we'll get into that too. I mean, no corporate media should be involved in that, really. But it will. Yeah, Nickelodeon, you disappoint me so much. I love your Nick at Night, but man, you're killing me with this NFL and fucking pushing political narratives and getting the kids' point of view and shit, and making other kids want to be involved. I'm sorry, children should be seen but not heard. I think kids should be a sponge until they earn being an adult and have a voice. I know that's going to piss a lot of you young kids off, but until you become older, you'll never understand. But now that I am older, I get it, because I felt that way. I get it. I totally fucking get it. But I didn't get it back then. I only had it from one perspective. I was just talking from the emotional outburst. You see the movies where the old guy's like, don't be so cocky and right off the hip. Take some time, assess the situation, But when you're young and the moment hits, no matter what kind of moment it is, you just react. You don't think. The older you get, the thinking happens more before you act, okay? But you can't get there. I mean, you see it happen, you know it, but whenever the moment comes, you forget. It's all out the window. You're just going to be the hero, in your story at least. You may be someone's villain in their perspective. But that's how I look at life. I try to look at it from every perspective. So when it comes to the internet, I think that would push us better off in society if we just, realize that, and then, that would help out a lot if we finally stop treating kids like little adults, because they're not. There's no equality there because kids are supposed to be protected up until a certain age where they reach their puberty. As far as sexual topics like what you are and your gender and all that kind of shit, that should be an individual thing up until, freshman year in high school where they take sex ed for the first time. And I don't think it should be pushed earlier than that. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's what should be done. But it don't make no sense to push adult-themed topics of conversations we're figuring out to a generation that needs to be educated on more important things than their personal identification that only they understand. I mean, it's ridiculous. Stop narrating these kids' lives. Stop pushing situations they have no say-so into for the next 10 or 15 years. Don't brainwash these kids. It's like the Pink Floyd song. You just leave these kids alone. You're just creating another brick in the wall. I love pro football. But I don't want to see them indoctrinated kids at 5 years old. SpongeBob is on the NFL show. They got the Loud House. Just young Dylan. And one of my favorite lines of all time, Mr. Nate Burleson. Love Nate Burleson. He actually responded to a tweet of mine on Twitter once, and that just made my day. One of the most, and as a Gen Xer, when you get an interaction with an idol that you grew up with, like I said, Nate Burleson was a Detroit Lion. I'm a huge Detroit Lions fan. Yes, I'm a big underdog fan in life. I really am. Been told that by someone before. But Goldberg retweeted a drawing I've done of him. And Goldberg's my favorite wrestler of all time. Really, I have never seen anybody own the ring in his character without it being flawed in some way. Now, he has had some pretty bad matches over the years. I'll say that. But the intensity of that guy in his prime, unmatched by any other wrestler I've ever seen in the ring. Really. Even the Ultimate Warrior, okay? I know I would piss off wrestling fans by saying that, but seriously, Goldberg, the man, always will be. All right? Sorry, I'm a big wrestling fan, too. Maybe we'll do a podcast about that. Wrestling with SimplySuperDave. I really enjoy doing this podcast. I love sharing my ideas and thoughts with people because I in my fantasy world, I don't care. I realize the podcast isn't going to earn me a paycheck or anything like that, so I'm not worried about that. I really just want the right person that can do something with some of the ideas or the way the perspectives and make a change in things. I even hit Elon Musk up on Twitter recently. I know nobody's going to read some idiot nobody's fucking tweet, but I tagged him, and I was like, I know you're a big electric car fan. I get that. But the whole way they mine cobalt for lithium batteries is it is really a slavery type thing. It's sad. If you ever look it up, I'm not going to tell you about it. Look it up about the cobalt mines. I think it's in Africa. It's or one of the, maybe it's India, but I think that's all in Africa. So check it out, and it'll disappoint you because you're playing a part in it right now. You're listening to all these cell phones all have lithium batteries. This is how it's all this 5G and the way it all works, cancer and all that neat stuff. But anyway, now you got all these electric cars with big old batteries. I mean, the whole bottom of the car is a lithium battery. So think about it. Everybody's driving a potential iPod, and basically. And so now the mining for this has exploded. All right, this is the mineral that's going to change this century. How oil changed last century until this day, then this is what cobalt is for this century, because it is the lithium battery. Imagine every vehicle in the world now being an electric car, or at least in America, okay? So that's a lot of lithium batteries, man, just rolling around on the road. I don't know about you, but we do have several inventors now, not just one guy, conspiracy theory. No, we've had multiple people that have figured out how to make a running engine off hydrogen, water, basically water. And however they figured out to do it, they don't use gasoline, they use water. That's pretty fucking cool. All right. So I asked him, is this such a good idea to go in this direction? And I knew his answer would be biased considering his investment, but this is one of the most positive, influential people in the world that's doing something with it kind of people. Look what he's done with space exploration. The things that he's bought Twitter, he opened up free speech again. He's doing things that I would expect someone in his position to do, but other people aren't. I like to see that. I question some of his things, but like I said, the electric car market. But if he believes in the good of society and doing the logical thing, and he has all this money, wouldn't he like to invest in inventing the water-running engine instead of using cobalt from the mines, causing slavery upon children, mining your batteries? I mean, really think about it. I don't feel like that's the right direction to go in, but hey, I took a shot in the dark. Send him a tweet. Let's see if he responds. Not like the podcast is going to call him out, right? But the whole point sometimes of the podcast is just to pass on a thought or message. Maybe it reaches the right ears. And when it reaches the right ears, the people that are in position to say something loud enough to a larger audience, then that can start to change. Someone asked me the other day, or gave me advice, to not preach so much to people that aren't going to listen. That what maybe I'm saying is falling on deaf ears. And I get that. I understand that I don't put out a product or content that is fully consumable like popcorn. I ask you to use your brains and put some thought and open your mind to lower your defenses down a little bit, because, we don't need a gun being pointed at each other at all time, even digitally. You're not forcing people to listen to you. You're asking them to. And that's what I'm doing with you, my listeners. I'm not trying to ever tell you what to do, think, or feel. I'm just saying, hey, don't you think this is a good idea? And isn't it weird that this is happening? Maybe this is what's really going on. So, as the world gets crazier today, another train derailment, by the way, folks. Check it out down in Kissimmee, Florida. That's right. More of a chemical burn-off and chemical spill, basically, because, it's a huge fire. Just crazy world out there. So we all got to stay super about it, right? Just got to look at it positive. Everything's going to play out one way or the other. It's just how you handle going down with the ship that's going to make it an experience. The world's crazy. It really is crazy, folks. And that's why sometimes I do the podcast, so I can talk it out. And even as I do the podcast, some of the things I talk about, I might change my mind on in the middle of it. Because just talking about it, you might open up a perspective that you may not have thought of before. And talking to y'all, I want to make sure I think about what I'm going to say before I say it. So I don't try to prepare it. I don't practice. I just hit record. And I just kind of let the feelings come out, and I figure it out as I talk to you. So, remember, it's all about that love and laughter. All about being responsible and being who you are. And all you parents out there, remember, it's not really about what you say. It's what you do. That's what they pay attention to the most. You can practice and say all that you want, drill it in their heads. But if you do opposite, or if you do it in front of them, they're going to do it too. Think about it. Pay attention. And remember, folks, love and laughter conquer hate and fear. So go be a conqueror. Don't be a victim.